Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Looks like we're a small crowd. By the way, for the ones in the back, if you guys want to kind of learn more about CDR, I really welcome you to come closer. It's pretty cozy here. I know I think it's a bigger event, so I really welcome you. You don't have to. I'm not. I promise I'm not gonna leave the stage. So first, I want to say thank you for the Governor to the opportunity to go and be one of the sponsors of the event. So thank you so much. It's my first time to Singapore. This is great. So I'm going to talk about CDR. Before we talk about CDR, let me introduce myself. My name is Benny Czarny. That was the first computer I programmed on, that x81 1K, great machine. So I founded a company called OPSWAT. We focus on critical infrastructure protection. And initially, I founded the company in 2004. It was a bootstrap. And I was the VP R&D. I was the VP sales. I was also the VP of coffee making. And then the company grew and became bigger. Now I have VPs, regional VPs, SVPs, C-levels, and so on. So I have more time to spend with my family, do some sports, and also here visit Singapore. The company grew, so we are a global company protecting critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure is everything that Homeland Security defines as critical infrastructure, which is banking, water, manufacturing, everything that is defined as critical, pretty much way of life. And for that, we have built a platform, a full platform with 21 products. And what's unique is that since 2011, we're building CDR that is powering each one of the platform. And in 2014, there was an interesting attack called BlackEnergy. Anybody remembers what was the attack, BlackEnergy attack? There is some cool video in the background. Anybody remember BlackEnergy, what is all about? It was actually pretty trendy now. It was in Ukraine. There was a cybersecurity attack on Ukraine. 6,000 people were disconnected from power. Anybody knows what happened there? How the attack happened? Anybody remembers? Yes? It was? Anybody remembers? It was an Excel files with a macro that ended up creating a disruption. So, and that I was shaking my hand and say, hey, it's like CDR could have prevented that. So, hey, what's happening there? And since then, we've been marketing CDR. I'm personally involved. I'm writing in the midst of writing a CDR book. And I really want to share in this 28 minutes that is left for us is about CDR, and to a point that the agenda is going to talk about. First, I'm going to talk about different malware detection and prevention technologies. After that, I'm going to talk about what is CDR. And then I'm going to talk about what is Deep CDR. And after that, I'm going to talk about several tips that each one of you can leave here, how to select the right CDR vendor for your organization. Okay? Anybody here knows with CDR before we begin? Anybody? Raise your hands. Anybody knows CDR? What is CDR? Anybody knows? Antivirus? Raise your hand. Anybody knows what is an antivirus? Okay. Sandbox? Anybody knows? What is sandbox? Okay. So I'm going to talk about malware and vulnerability. So I'm going to focus on two different technologies. One is antivirus, and then second is sandbox. So first, this is AV-Test. AV-Test is a German company. Over 1 billion malware is out there, way more. And then vulnerability is obviously hundreds of thousands. So we're talking about big numbers here of malware and vulnerability. So whenever we talk about antivirus, there is, I think, a big confusion in the market about antivirus efficacy. There are at least two ways to operate your antivirus that you know. One is the real-time way. Whenever you install an antivirus on the machine, the real-time protection way, there is one way pretty much protecting the device. And another way to operate your antivirus is either via API or command line to scan a file, statistically. So on this operation, the antivirus will needs to protect the device and assessing what's happening on the device on an ongoing basis. And scanning a file is all about looking at the file and predicting, is that good or bad, before you execute that. What it's good for, real-time protection, is to actively protect your devices, phones, whatever you install it on. However, the static file scanning, it's used for other things. For your email scanning, whenever you see email flowing in, USB scanning, file scanning, whenever you have that, drive scanning, USB scanning, right? So it's two different ways to operate on, and why it's important to understand it, it's very, very important to understand these two ways to operate an antivirus, because whenever we check the real-time protection, so what you see on this chart right now is AV-Comparative. AV-Comparative is another German vendor, and what they do is every month they check and test many different antiviruses and write reports about their efficacy preventing malware. So in this report of AV test that I took from September 2021, you can see on this column the offline detection and here the online detection. And what you see here, it's like you see the numbers are changing. So you can see that there is a big gap between the offline detection and the online detection. Anybody knows why? Why there's a big gap between those? And again, this is the real-time protection. This is whenever you install the antivirus to protect the device. Anybody knows why there's a big difference? Hint, I already talked about it before. A lot of malware, right? More than 1 billion malware. You can't expect to have a database with 1 billion malware on a device to a point that the antivirus will be effective or efficient to go deep. So you see a big gap between them. Now, whenever you look at the same report that I took for you from March 2022, what you see is the numbers completely different. A great antivirus became a terrible antivirus. And a terrible antivirus became a great antivirus. So you can see that the quality of the antivirus efficacy on real time is changing. Let's look at the false positive. False positive is another issue of antiviruses. Anybody here ever got a false positive? False positive? Anybody got? Yeah, it's annoying. It's, again, we need to live with that. It's like we need to live with some diseases. So if you look at comparison, then the real-time protection protects devices. The malware prevention, we're talking about moving from 87 to 99% to 40 to 92.3 whenever you disconnect an antivirus from the internet. This is very important, protecting critical infrastructure. Okay, whenever we look at the supported file types, it's any, false positive, yes, vulnerability. I'm not going to talk about too much about, I don't have enough time to talk about vulnerabilities, though it does detect some vulnerabilities. The analysis performance is millisecond, however, the prevention quality is keep changing. And you need to remember that. So a great antivirus today could be a terrible tomorrow. So we said there are two ways, right, to test, to operate an antivirus. One is real time, and another one is scan a file. So we didn't find a third-party testing that tests that. So we built MetaDefender Cloud. If you end up after this presentation, you can go and visit www.metadefender.com. And what you see there, you take a file and you can scan it with like 40 different antivirus engines. You can also CDR files there, it's all for free. And we operate this website, it's a free website, so we scan millions of files every day. Many of them are malware. And we test the efficacy of static scanning of each one of these antiviruses. We take the top 10,000 files. By the way, and we keep showing these statistics on the website. So we check that the top 10,000 malware that we see, the most common 10,000 malware, and we run it by different antiviruses. So in this report, you see 37 antiviruses. So you see the best results we get is 76.32% on this specific date. By the way, it is changing. The worst performer, talking about 6.2%, which means the efficacy of static scanning is significantly lower than the real-time protection. Now, let's look at false positive rate. Very similar to real-time, also false positive. Sometimes, some antiviruses are really terrible, some antiviruses are, yes, we should expect false positive, very similar to the real-time protection as well. The performance analysis, we're talking about milliseconds. So it is slightly slower than the real-time protection whenever, again, the device is operating, though we are talking about milliseconds. Depends on the file, depends on the antivirus. So let's see what we have here. So if we have, on this table that we have, so we have, again, let's compare the file scanning to the real-time protection. So we can see that the difference is data flow. But something is very obvious here is that the protection level of file scanning is significantly lower than the real-time protection. Okay, let's go to sandboxes. So like 10 years ago, sandboxes became a big deal, right? So sandboxes, and what is a sandbox? Anybody know sandbox? Take a file, let it run, explode in its own virtual environment, and then you monitor this virtual environment and try to predict, is that gonna be a malware or not, right? So we have, by the way, we have a sandbox as well, one of the technologies. We need to analyze malware too, so we have a sandbox. I'm not gonna go and start promoting our products, so I'm going to talk about simply CDR technology. So when we compare vendor A to vendor B in our lab, I'm not gonna tell you which one is ours, though and then so sandboxes, it very much depends on the file types that you do. And again, it is predicting, and it's very effective for file flows. So you can put sandbox on your email flow and other flows. Though again, we see some really nice results, nicer than static scanning, though not 100%. Whenever we look at false positive rates, typically we see it higher than in antiviruses. And here we see 3 different vendors that we looked at sandbox comparison. So we see sandboxes, slightly higher false positives. However, whenever we go to performance, this comes the big issue. We're talking about not milliseconds, 78 seconds to 300 seconds to run an executable or another file type to make a decision or to predict whether it's going to be good or not. So file types. Different sandboxes support a different file type. So if you're selecting a sandbox to protect your data flow too, another thing you want to go and check, what are the file types that these specific sandbox support? Okay? So let's compare what we have now. So you can see that the anti-malware file scan, you see 6 to 76, and you see a higher rate. However, the big deal that we have here is that the file type supported for sandboxes is limited, where in antivirus, theoretically it's not. It is, though theoretically it's not. And the speed is way slower. We're talking about order of magnitude slower than an antivirus technology. So clearly, we see a very big flow in the industry, right? There's so much, and I'm not blaming. You see, there's so much marketing budget in the event just behind us. And the big flow in the industry is about that all of these technologies are based on detection. Even the best antivirus you get, AI, it's all based on detection. You see a file, see a behavior, and then you need to make a decision whether it's good or bad, and based on that, get an action. And another is that you see all of the evidence here is that this is not perfect. This is sometimes slow, sometimes fast, depends. This is also sometimes depending on specific file types. And that's getting our whole industry to a whole thing about, okay, detection, response, prevention, okay, detection, and then to some extent, the industry is, oh, the detection is not going to work, so we're going to do it again and again and again and again. This is why you have the whole incident response and the whole industry around that, and pretty much the market is used to all of that. So what is CDR? CDR taking the exact same concept of, hey, let's assess that and assume it's all bad. And taking a file, regenerating a file to a new file, discard the file if you suspect it's going to be bad, and use the new file. So again, why do you even make a decision whenever you can really regenerate the file? Assume everything is bad. Trust no file. Assume everything is a virus. You're going to regenerate. If you can truly trust, you can regenerate the file in a secure way. Why should it be a malware in the first place? Okay? So another way to go and illustrate is, okay, you go camping, you get some water, you're not sure whether there's bacteria there or there are viruses in the water. So you can distillize the water, and then you can get the steam, and after that purify the water, and then drink the water, purify the water. That's one way to look at kind of the concept. Anybody here knows who is Dolly the sheep? Dolly the sheep, anybody knows who is Dolly the sheep? Okay, so you see, you have a sheep, you want to eat the sheep. I'm hoping nobody is vegetarian. And you want to eat the sheep, so you take a DNA, or you don't know if the virus is there or not. So you take a DNA sample, you regenerate the sheep in a secure and safe environment, and you grow the sheep, and then you take this sheep and pet it or eat it or whatever you want to do. It's another way to another concept to go and look and think about CDR. So also, whenever you look at CDR, I've seen, by the way, we're working in 81 countries. I've seen all kinds of description to CDR. Some of them are politically correct, some of them are not politically correct. And you can see, by the way, we ask our channel partners, who are very strong with channel partners, we ask them to help us with this translation. You can see it in Korean, in Arabic, in German, in Japanese, in Vietnamese, so all kinds of kind of ways to go and describe that. I hope you can find. And by the way, if you, the guy's taking pictures, I'll be very happy to share with you the slides. After that, you can get the business card from me, or Malcolm here, who is the VP of APAC, is here kind of at the first row. So what is good for CDR? It's good for file-based malware, for known malware. And by we should not take known malware for granted. We can prove to you today, go to Metadefender Cloud, there are tons of known malware out there that not, even known antiviruses do not detect as malware. File-based unknown malware, so we have a targeted attack on anything coming to you, very effective. File-based known vulnerability in a file-based means that you can take to deck like a JPEG with a buffer overflow and hack with that your IoT device or your computer. Bunch of vulnerabilities around that, okay? Or file-based unknown vulnerability, so you have government-based, so if you have running a governmental operation and you're afraid that another foreign government is sitting on a huge database on file-based unknown vulnerability going to attack your critical infrastructure, extremely effective, extremely effective. What's not good for? It's definitely not good to analyze malware because you can't analyze malware if you regenerate the file, you discard the file. You assume it's bad, you're regenerating a file, you cannot assume to go and use that. It's not good for executables. I'm not aware about a way to regenerate an executable using CDR. And it's some are saying, hey, why can't you kind of do that? Many executables are encrypted. So it's literally, it's very hard to regenerate that. And also network-based vulnerability. So it's not really effective for that. So if you're looking to do that, I think it's important. The industry needs that. CDR is not going to help you with that. Let's give you some examples. So by the way, you can take these examples. We can even share you with a link with Metadefender Cloud. So you have a sandbox there. You can go and analyze those there. So this is a vulnerability CV 2000. You can see the numbers there. And then this is an unknown vulnerability. It was a 0-day for years. And then it was discovered. And then an ORE object with a HTML protocol. Known malware, such as the largest Trojan botnet, could have prevented by global CDR implementation worldwide. You can also see that after that, for the ones of you, we have links to the specific malware that we analyze in the cloud. Another one is for stenography. So if somebody is trying to take a malware, embed it into an image to a point you can decode that. So the regenerating format is going to also regenerate the file and also create a file format to do that. And we have a lot of kind of, if you want to do some more reading about that, we have some online data about that. So let's compare CDR to other technologies so we can see that the CDR is for data flow. So I put together here malware prevention for 100% with apostrophe here. So we've been working with Homeland Security on several file formats that we are not aware about a way to hack those. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. So I take it with a grain of salt, though we are not aware, and the US Department of Homeland Security is not aware about a way to hack those. Malware detection is not really effective, though be aware that the file type support is limited to the specific file formats that you have, right? The false positive is not really available, it's not really kind of applicable here. The vulnerability prevention, effective, not for all. There are some network-based that it's not going to be applicable to. And then the performance is very similar to the file scanning of an antivirus, okay? And then the prevention quality is constant wherever sandbox and others keep changing. So again, it's not good for everything, extremely effective if you know how to use it on specific parts of your network. So I promised we talk about Deep CDR, right? So what is CDR and what is Deep CDR? So anybody knows what's common to these file types? Anybody knows? What's unique about these file types on this one? Archives. Good. Yeah, 5 points. That's great. Archives. All archives. So today, not only zip, doc, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, they are all archives. Many file types today became archives. So PDF, I think version 4 already became an archive. So, and what it creates us a big challenge here, because if you put an image inside a PDF and stick it in a Word document, that's a big challenge, right? So it may sound easy to some. Do you have engineers here any engineer here in the crowd? Anybody here is an engineer? Nobody's an engineer. Anybody can code? Anybody can code here? Okay. So it's some would say, oh, CDR is a recursion. Recursion means that take the PDF, you need to open it up and then put the PowerPoint inside, and then open it up and continue doing that recursively up until you pretty much CDR the whole document recursively. So a recursive CDR is a deep CDR. And why is that important? Because many malware today are coming, and that's really hard to do in an effective way. CDR is complex by its own thing. By its own means, CDR is very hard to do. So doing recursively, whenever you have different file formats changing and you need to do the whole thing in a secure way, it's very hard, especially when malware writers, such as embedded a document that we can actually have you an example here, and also another CVE, a Microsoft CVE, that also is applicable only on archive files. In this specific doc file that actually download an HTML file in OLE object, extremely complex. However, Deep CDR is effective here. And for that also, we have some samples. For the ones of you interested, there is a live link. You can go to an online that you can see how the file is being scanned. You see in this specific case, only 9 different antiviruses detected this malware as a threat. And however, it was a malware, and then on the 0 day, it was actually 0 out of the 35. So we talked about CDR, we talked about Deep CDR, we talked about different anti-malware technologies. Now I'm going to talk about how to select your CDR vendor, right? So the number one question to ask yourself, does it really work? I've seen so many companies claiming to have CDR technology, though how can you really test that it works? Test it? You're going to test it yourself? Do you have a lab to test the CDR technology? You see lots of folks saying, oh, we have CDR, it's great. Though, test it. Did you really test it? Or if you don't, you cannot test it. Ask to read the test plan. Or ask for a third-party validation. Or if there is anything, or ask the vendor, do you do crowdsourcing? I want to see the log results. That's another way to go and do. If somebody is hiding that information from you, I would advise not to work with them. So we talked about that CDR is very much depending on file types. So how many file types are supported, and ask to see the performance analysis per file type. So to a point, what are the supported file types? Anybody knows how many file types are out there? Anybody thinks less than 500? Raise your hand. More than 500? Everybody else is asleep? Okay. So there are more than 5,000 file types, and it's growing. growing and growing and growing. And each file type has multiple versions. So supported file types. And you also want to check that these supported file types are effective for your organization. Because if you are, for example, you deal with AutoCAD files, then you want to make sure that AutoCAD is a huge vector for attacks, by the way. You want to see that AutoCAD's files are supported. Data channels. So CDR is a technology. At the end of the day, it's not like a product. CDR is not a product. You need to see what type of data channels are supporting your organization. So, for example, do you have an email product? You can't, you're not expecting to go and build your own email security product. You need to take the CDR and bring that to the email. So ask, do you have an email plugin? Do you have integration to the network traffic? Does it have API? Ask to review the APIs. Ask your engineers to review the APIs if you plan to embed it to your data flow. Does it have a removable media integration or storage integration? Another thing you want to go and check is the quality of the construction. And that's, by the way, easy to go and check doing the POC. Just install the product and run different file formats throughout the system. Move video files, if the vendor supports video files, or images, and try to see the files before and the file after to see if the quality is changing. We talk about Deep CDR, so you want to see that archives are supported. And with archives, please be careful. There are multiple attacks on archives. So for example, there's an archive bomb. Anybody knows what is an archive bomb? So you put an archive in an archive, and by creating an archive bomb, you're literally attacking the CDR or the archiving engines. So you want to make sure that the vendor is not only supporting the archives, also supporting prevention for attacks that are targeting archives. Performance. So whenever you look at performance, it's very file type specific. So if a vendor is telling you, oh, we support everything is 0.1 millisecond, say, oh, okay, which file type? Ask to see a performance analysis per file type. That's extremely, and also see that the file types that you really care about. Security of the sanitization process. So sanitization, regenerating a file, it's a process. To take a file and create a new file. And after that, take the original file, open it up, and many times it's a malware, and take the files and then regenerate the new file. So it's a very complex system. So you need to ask the vendors, show me a design diagram of your CDR engine. How do you protect your CDR engine? Attackers are attacking the CDR. They know that CDR is more and more used. I mean, we have more than 1,500 customers. I'm pretty sure that attackers knows that and trying to target our CDR. So what is the security? Another thing that you want to ask yourself is a secure development lifecycle. Do you really kind of, how your engineering work? Is there a static code analysis? How is that being done? Ask to see a report of the static code analysis of the CDR. Nothing wrong with that. Debug mode. So another thing that we found is that, and using CDR and implementing CDRs in many organizations, is we get a lot of, initially we get a lot of resistance for CDR deployment. So debug mode enables you to actually run CDR and see exactly what's happening in the CDR, like, okay, opening the archive, getting this or rebuilding that, and ask to see a detailed log file of the CDR. If the vendor is trying to hide that from you, be careful. Just be careful because, again, from experience, that's something to go and ask for. Another thing that you want to go and check is the compliance and the certification of the vendor, specifically common criteria that is looking for a design of how you write it, and others, certification of the vendor that you want to make sure that you are really believing in and very applicable to your company. And lastly, this example of BlackEnergy, you can see that actually 19 engines today actually detects that as a malware. Or as I mentioned before, we see the CDR, the malware and the disruption to 6,000 households could have been prevented. So I'd like to thank each one of you. And then I have a minute to go, so maybe any questions that the audience have. Yes. Say again? Oh, a look at the product in action. Yeah, definitely. You can go to Mail Defender Cloud. I welcome each one of you. You can take any file you upload. We limit it only to like 10 different file formats on online. Very soon we're going to open up the rest of the file formats. You can also download the whole product on our portal, on Mail Defender or on OPSWAT.com, and you can use the product and actually check the CDR. The best is also we can talk to, we have sales engineers here, so with pleasure we'll be able to go and meet after that and you can see it. Or again, you can do the online one, Mail Defender Cloud. You can see it. Also online, we have a live sandbox that we can actually, you can also analyze malware live with the sandbox. Any other questions? Okay, so let me summarize. So we talked about malware prevention technologies. We talked about CDR, what is CDR? We compared the folks. For the ones of you that are interested in a copy of the presentation, please come here. We'll be able to go and I'll personally make sure that you get a copy. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for Gavor for this hospitality.